Welcome to Open at Midnight, the home of true crime, haunted places, dark history, and the stories that most people have forgotten or wish they had. Before we begin, a quick warning. This video contains discussions of disturbing historical events, death, violence, and other dark topics. Viewer discretion is advised. If you enjoy creepy stories, bizarre history, and chilling mysteries, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. And while you're watching, let me know in the comments, which story disturbed you the most? Now, turn off the lights, and let's uncover the most disturbing parts of history nobody talks about. It was supposed to be the perfect Christmas, December 25th, 1996. Boulder, Colorado. Inside one of the city's most affluent neighborhoods, the Ramsey family had spent the day celebrating Christmas together. 6-year-old JonBenét Ramsey had opened presents, played with her new toys, and spent the evening with her parents, Patsy and John Ramsey, and her older brother, Burke. To everyone around them, it looked like an ordinary family enjoying the holidays. That evening, the Ramseys attended a Christmas gathering at the home of family friends. Photographs from the night show smiles, holiday decorations, and what appeared to be a joyful celebration. No one could have imagined that within hours, one of America's greatest mysteries would begin. Later that night, the family returned home. According to their accounts, JonBenet had fallen asleep in the car on the drive back. John carried her upstairs and put her to bed. Burke also went to his room. The family planned to wake early the next morning to catch a flight to Michigan for another Christmas celebration. It was a busy holiday season. Everything seemed normal. Or so it appeared. Then, just before 6 o'clock the following morning, everything changed. Patsy Ramsey says she woke up and walked downstairs. As she approached the staircase, she noticed several sheets of paper lying on one of the steps. At first, she may have assumed it was nothing more than a note. Instead, she picked up what would become one of the most famous pieces of evidence in criminal history: a handwritten ransom letter. It claimed JonBenet had been kidnapped. The note demanded exactly $118,000 in exchange for her safe return, an amount remarkably similar to John's recent work bonus. It also warned the family not to contact police, but within minutes, a frantic 911 call was made. "We have a kidnapping." Police officers were dispatched immediately. Friends and family also began arriving at the Ramsey home to offer support. The house quickly filled with people. At the time, no one knew those early hours would become one of the most scrutinized crime scenes in American history. Investigators initially treated the case as a kidnapping, but as the hours passed, something wasn't adding up. The ransom note was unusually long, there were no clear signs of forced entry, and the person everyone was desperately searching for had never actually left the house, what officers would discover later that day would transform a kidnapping investigation into one of the most debated unsolved murder cases in modern history. And that discovery would raise far more questions than answers. As Boulder police arrived at the Ramsey home that morning, they believed they were responding to a kidnapping. The handwritten ransom note was already waiting. JonBenet's bedroom was empty. The family insisted she had been taken during the night. At first, the investigation focused on finding a missing child. Officers searched parts of the house, interviewed those present, and waited for the kidnapper to make contact. But something felt unusual. The ransom note was nearly 3 pages long, far longer than most ransom demands investigators had seen. It asked for $118,000, an amount matching John's recent work bonus. And despite the warning not to call police, the police had already been notified. As the morning passed, friends, family members, and victim advocates gathered inside the Ramsey home to support the family. In hindsight, investigators have said the number of people moving throughout the house complicated the scene. Rooms were entered, objects were handled. Potential evidence may have been disturbed before the home could be fully secured. Then, around 1 o'clock that afternoon, Detective Linda Arndt asked John Ramsey and a family friend to conduct another search of the house, starting from the top floor and working their way down. John headed toward the basement. He opened the door to a small interior room that had previously received only limited attention. Inside, he found JonBenet. She had not been taken from the house. She was still there. John picked up his daughter and carried her upstairs. In doing so, investigators later noted that the scene was further altered, making it more difficult to preserve physical evidence exactly as it had been found. The investigation changed instantly. What had begun as a kidnapping investigation became a homicide investigation, but by then, critical hours had already passed. From that moment forward, detectives faced an incredibly difficult task. They had a lengthy ransom note, a home filled with people, a crime scene that had changed over the course of the morning, and far more questions than answers. How had this happened? Why had there been a ransom note if JonBenet had never left the house? And who was responsible? Those questions have remained at the center of the investigation for decades. Because while the discovery answered one heartbreaking question, it created countless others as investigators examined the Ramsey home. They weren't just searching for a killer, they were searching for answers, and the evidence they uncovered would become some of the most debated in modern criminal history. Nearly 3 decades later, many of those questions remain unanswered. Let's start with what may be the most famous piece of evidence, the ransom note. Unlike most ransom demands, this one stretched nearly 3 pages long. It was handwritten inside the Ramsey home using paper and a pen that belonged to the family. After the note was written, the pen was returned to its usual place. Investigators immediately questioned why someone committing a kidnapping would spend so much time inside the house, writing such a lengthy letter instead of bringing one with them. The note also demanded exactly $118,000, not $100,000, not $1 million, exactly $118,000. That number matched John Ramsey's recent Christmas bonus from work. The unusually specific amount became one of the case's biggest mysteries. Handwriting experts later examined the note extensively. Some believed certain family members could not be eliminated as possible writers. Others disagreed. No examiner was able to conclusively identify who wrote it. Then there was the DNA. Investigators recovered small amounts of unknown male DNA from JonBenet's clothing. Over the years, advances in forensic testing allowed that DNA to be examined again. Some investigators have argued it could point toward an unidentified person. Others caution that such small DNA samples can sometimes result from innocent transfer during manufacturing, packaging, or everyday contact. Because of those uncertainties, the DNA has never conclusively identified a suspect or ruled every possibility out. Another piece of evidence centered on a broken basement window. John Ramsey acknowledged he had broken the window months earlier after locking himself out of the house. Investigators examined whether it could have been used as an entry or exit point. Despite years of discussion, there has never been a definitive conclusion proving that someone entered the home through that window on the night of the crime. Nearby, investigators also documented duct tape, cord, and part of a broken paintbrush. The paintbrush was traced back to one belonging to Patsy Ramsey's art supplies. How and when those items were used, and by whom, became another focus of the investigation. Each discovery seemed to answer one question, only to raise another: the ransom note, the DNA, the basement, the window, the tape, the cord. Individually, each piece of evidence told only part of the story. Together, they formed a puzzle that investigators have spent decades trying to solve, and despite thousands of hours of investigation, no single piece of evidence has been enough to definitively explain exactly what happened inside the Ramsey home that Christmas night. The evidence has inspired countless books, documentaries, podcasts, and theories, but theories are not facts, and in this case, the facts leave us with one undeniable truth. Someone knows what happened, and after all these years, that person has never been held accountable. Within days, the murder of 6-year-old JonBenét Ramsey had become national news. What began as a local investigation in Boulder, Colorado, quickly transformed into one of the most publicized criminal cases in American history.
Past Santa Claus in his sleigh and a double row of candy canes, deputy coroners brought the body of 6-year-old JonBenét Ramsey from her upscale home. Neighbors described the young girl as beautiful and polite. In 1995, she won the Little Miss Colorado pageant. Boulder police won't comment on her cause of death, only saying that she wasn't shot or stabbed. They are investigating her death as a homicide. So far, no arrests have been made. This case started as a kidnapping. Police were called here to the scene at about 6 a.m. the morning after Christmas. Someone inside this house had made a 911 call saying that little JonBenet had been kidnapped. Well, when police got here, they went inside the house, and a short time later, they found the little girl's body. The parents, John and Patsy Ramsey, were home at the time, but detectives say the parents are not suspects.
In Colorado today, the mystery of the little girl found strangled in the basement of her house. It's been more than a week since the murder of JonBenét Ramsey, a 6-year-old beauty queen, shocked the town of Boulder. So far, there are no arrests, but many troubling questions. ABC's Tom Foreman is in Boulder.
Television crews surrounded the Ramsey home. Newspapers covered every development. Speculation spread across the country. And before long, millions of people believed they knew what had happened. The problem was investigators still didn't. As detectives continued examining the evidence, the investigation became increasingly complicated. The Ramsey family spoke publicly about their daughter's death and maintained that they had no involvement.
Mr. and Mrs. Ramsey, did either of you have anything to do with the death of your daughter?
No.
No. Mr. Ramsey, did you kill JonBenet?
No, I did not.
Mrs. Ramsey, did you kill your daughter?
No, I did not kill my daughter.
Over the years, they participated in interviews and denied any responsibility for the crime. Meanwhile, investigators continued pursuing multiple leads. Some focused on the possibility of an intruder. Others examined whether someone inside the home could have been responsible. As the investigation continued, different investigators sometimes reached different conclusions about the evidence. That disagreement only added to the public confusion. In 1999, a grand jury spent more than a year reviewing evidence in the case. Although the jury voted to recommend certain charges related to child abuse, resulting in death, and alleged assistance to an unknown person, the district attorney at the time decided there was not enough evidence to move forward with the prosecution. Those recommendations remained sealed for years before eventually becoming public. Still, no one was ever put on trial for JonBenet's murder. As forensic science improved, investigators returned to the evidence. DNA testing became more advanced. Items were re-examined. New technology offered hope that answers might finally emerge. In 2008, the Boulder County District Attorney publicly announced that DNA evidence did not support prosecuting members of the Ramsey family. Though later officials emphasized that the investigation remained open, and no individual had been definitively cleared. To this day, the case remains active. Investigators continue to review evidence as forensic technology evolves. Thousands of tips have been received. Numerous suspects have been investigated. Countless theories have been debated. Yet after all these years, no one has been convicted. Perhaps that's why this case continues to fascinate so many people. It's not just because of the mystery. It's because every unanswered question represents a little girl whose family and the public never received definitive answers. Nearly 3 decades later, the search for the truth continues. And somewhere, the answer to what happened on that Christmas night may still exist. But before we end this story, let's look at the questions that continue to divide investigators, experts, and the public to this very day. Nearly 30 years have passed. Thousands of pages of evidence have been reviewed. Hundreds of interviews have been conducted. Advances in forensic science have changed criminal investigations forever. And yet, the murder of JonBenét Ramsey remains officially unsolved. Why? Because some of the biggest questions have never been answered. The first, who wrote the ransom note? Investigators determined the note was written inside the Ramsey home using paper and a pen belonging to the family. It was unusually long, referenced a very specific ransom amount, and remains one of the most debated pieces of evidence in the case. Despite years of handwriting analysis, no examiner has conclusively identified its author. Then there's the DNA, unknown male. DNA was found on some of JonBenét's clothing. Over the years, improvements in DNA testing have kept hope alive that science may one day identify who it belongs to. At the same time, experts have cautioned that interpreting small or mixed DNA samples can be complex, and the available evidence has not led to a definitive suspect. Another lingering question: was there an intruder? Investigators examined possible points of entry, including a broken basement window. Some believed it suggested someone could have entered the home. Others pointed to the lack of clear evidence proving an intruder came through that route. Decades later, there is still no consensus, and perhaps the biggest question of all: could this case still be solved? Today's forensic technology is far more advanced than it was in 1996. Investigators continue to review evidence, evaluate new tips, and apply modern techniques that simply didn't exist when the crime occurred. Many cold cases have been solved years, even decades, later because of advances in DNA analysis. Could the same thing happen here? It's possible. But until that day comes, the questions remain. For some, this case became a mystery to solve. For investigators, it became one of the most challenging homicide investigations in American history. But above everything else, it was the tragic loss of a 6-year-old little girl. Behind every headline, every documentary, every theory, was a real child whose life ended far too soon. No matter where the evidence eventually leads, that should never be forgotten. Perhaps one day, a new piece of evidence, a scientific breakthrough, or someone finally deciding to tell the truth will provide the answers that have remained hidden for nearly 3 decades until then. The mystery of JonBenét Ramsey remains one of America's most enduring unsolved cases. If you found this case as fascinating as it is heartbreaking, I'd love to hear your thoughts. What unanswered question stands out to you the most? Share your thoughts respectfully in the comments below. If you enjoy true crime, dark history, haunted places, and chilling mysteries, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Open at Midnight, and turn on notifications so you never miss a new investigation. Until next time, lock your doors, turn off the lights, and remember, some mysteries refuse to stay buried. This has been Open at Midnight.